So what does a manager actually do all day? I mean, really, it's one of those jobs that's everywhere, but it's also kind of mysterious, right? Today, we're going to demystify that title. We're opening up the manager's toolkit to see what's inside.
Yeah, seriously. Have you ever wondered what they're really doing? You see them hopping from meeting to meeting, you get those emails, but what does the actual day-to-day grind look like? Is it just about delegating tasks and then, heading off to yet another meeting?
Well, look, if that was the whole story, pretty much anyone could do it, right? The truth is, those old stereotypes, they just don't capture the full picture. The job is way more of a strategic balancing act than it looks from the outside.
So to really get to the bottom of this, we're going to pry open that manager's toolkit and take a good look at the core functions, the different roles, and the skills that truly define the job. Let's dive in, starting with the very foundation.
Okay, first up in the toolkit is what I like to call the blueprint. These are the 4 fundamental functions, basically the foundation for everything a manager does. Think of it as their master plan. You can think of this whole thing as a continuous loop, right? It all kicks off with planning. I mean, you can't get anywhere without a map. Then you've got to organize, arranging your team and all your resources to actually follow that map. Leading, well, that's the real art of inspiring everyone to keep moving in the right direction. And finally, controlling. That's you checking the compass, making sure you're still on track and, correcting course when you need to. Each step just flows right into the next.
All right, so if those functions are the master plan, the next tool in the kit is all about execution. You see, a manager wears a ton of different hats all day long. I'm talking switching from like a strategist to a mentor to a tough negotiator, sometimes all in the span of an hour.
A researcher named Henry Mintzberg broke this down brilliantly. He basically figured out that all those different random-seeming things managers do can be sorted into just 3 big categories, or roles: interpersonal, informational, and decisional. So let's break each of those down.
First, you've got the interpersonal roles. And this is all about people, plain and simple. As a figurehead, maybe the manager is representing the team at an awards dinner, the symbolic stuff. As a leader, they're right there in the trenches with the team, coaching and motivating. And as a liaison, they're the bridge builder, maybe grabbing lunch with a manager from another department just to make sure all the projects stay lined up.
Next up, the informational roles. This is where the manager basically becomes the nerve center for the team. As a monitor, they're constantly scanning for info, maybe reading industry news to spot a new trend. Then, as a disseminator, they're sharing that key info with everyone in the morning huddle. And as a spokesperson, they're the one presenting the team's quarterly results to the higher-ups.
And finally, we have the decisional roles. This is where managers really make things happen. As an entrepreneur, they might be the one pushing for a new, more efficient workflow. As a disturbance handler, they're the firefighter, the calm in the storm when there's a sudden budget cut or a conflict. As a resource allocator, they're making the tough calls about which projects get time and money. And as a negotiator, they could be hammering out the details of a new contract with a supplier.
Okay, so you've got the blueprint, you've got all the different hats they wear. But what's the secret sauce? What allows a manager to actually do all this stuff effectively? Well, the next tool in our kit is what I'm calling their superpowers, the essential skills that make it all work. It really boils down to 3 core abilities. You've got technical skills, which is the what you know, your expertise in, say, marketing or software engineering. Then there are human skills, that's the who, your ability to communicate, motivate, and just work well with people. And finally, conceptual skills. This is the why and the where, that ability to see the big picture, to understand how your team's little piece of the puzzle fits into the entire company's goals.
But here's the interesting thing. Not all skills are equally important at every single level. Take a look at this shift. For a lower-level frontline manager, that technical know-how is absolutely crucial for training their team. But as you climb the ladder, the focus starts to move away from doing the work to orchestrating the work. For a top-level CEO, that big picture, conceptual thinking, well, that's everything. All right, so we know what managers do, and we know the skills they need to do it. But where does all this happen? Let's look at the final piece of the puzzle, the arena, the modern world where all this work actually gets done.
Every manager is basically living in 2 worlds at once. On one hand, they're constantly juggling the internal environment, things like the company culture, the specific employees on their team, the budget they've been given. But at the exact same time, they have to be reacting to the external environment. What are competitors up to? What do our customers want now? Where's the economy heading?
A truly great manager has to master the world inside the building while keeping a really sharp eye on everything happening outside. And as you can probably guess, navigating this whole arena is getting more and more complex. I mean, the 21st century has tossed a whole new set of challenges onto the field that managers have to face head-on.
In today's fast-paced world, 3 challenges really stand out. First, in an era of constant, dizzying change, a team needs a crystal-clear vision to act as its North Star. Second, with public trust being what it is, having strong ethics it's non-negotiable. And third, in our global economy, being able to navigate and really embrace cultural diversity isn't just a nice-to-have anymore. It is absolutely essential for survival and success.
Let's zoom in on that ethics piece for a second, because pretty much every decision a manager makes has a ripple effect. At its very core, business ethics is all about using that power responsibly. It's about having a set of principles that guide your actions toward a positive impact for everyone involved.
And this is a really critical distinction to make. The law tells you what you have to do to avoid getting in trouble. Ethics, on the other hand, tells you what you should do, simply because it's the right thing to do. It's the framework you use to build trust, especially when nobody's looking over your shoulder.
This all leads to this idea of social responsibility, which you can kind of think of as a pyramid, a hierarchy of needs for a business. The very foundation is economic. Look, if the company isn't profitable, nothing else is going to happen. The next level up is legal. You have to obey the law, play by the rules. But the really great companies don't stop there. They operate ethically, always striving to do what's right, even when it's not required. And at the very top of the pyramid, they reach the discretionary level. This is where they become truly great corporate citizens, actively contributing to the community and making the world a better place.
So let's pull it all back together. As we've seen, that manager's toolkit isn't just 1 or 2 simple things. It's totally packed with a structured set of functions, a whole closet full of different roles, and a really critical portfolio of skills. When you get right down to it, being a manager is an incredibly complex balancing act. It's all about steering the organization through all those internal needs and external pressures, using every tool in their kit, and trying like heck to make decisions that aren't just profitable, but are also ethical and responsible.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In a world that's increasingly full of AI and automation, what does it truly mean to be a great human manager? Maybe those uniquely human skills, leadership, ethics, vision, are more important right now than they have ever been before. Something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive.